So this was shared with me on our Discord. By the way, if you're not a member of our Discord, YouTube members, Twitch subs, whether gifted or not, all of them get access to our exclusive Discord. You just connect your accounts and you can join us, having a great time over there. But this was submitted by a viewer over on the Discord, and it's simply titled, it's a video from Livvid, and it's simply titled, Todd Howard Mismanaged Elder Scrolls 6. I'll let him explain. Which I do love in concept. Just being like, take it away, Todd. Go ahead. So I figured we could see just what this is. Because my understanding after like skimming the playhead through it is that this is literally just a collection of clips of Todd talking about Elder Scrolls 6 over the years and steadily becoming more and more bedeviled at how out of control it's gotten. Because at this point, it will almost certainly be, I would guess, 17 years roughly since the last Elder Scrolls game when we get Elder Scrolls 6, because right now it looks like it's probably 2028, assuming no massive delays or anything. That would give it 5 years of production after Starfield, which is fairly optimistic, but that would put it roughly there. Cross-generational title between the PS5 era and PS6 era, which, yes, it's going to launch on both. I would bet you good money. Yeah, I think that that's probably what we're looking at, but close to 20 years between releases. And then that would also set them up to probably get Fallout 5 out in 2033 to 2035, putting it also close to 20 years after its last entry. So let's see what he had to say. The candle is lit. Take it away.
Seems like we're probably going to go a decade between major Elder Scrolls releases.
I think everyone should be very patient.
Todd, you sly bastard. Todd, you sly bastard. I think everybody should be very patient. I think this is a clip from 2018, shortly after the reveal that the game was being made, and also around the same era as Fallout 76 when they were doing a lot of press, which I think is what this was for. And so at that point, he says, it's about a decade. So he's thinking 2021. You poor naive fool. I don't think they even started actually working on it until like probably 2024, realistically. I don't think they started until like after Starfield was out the door, and then they like went on vacation for the holidays, came back, and then I think they actually started. But I don't think they had even like really been working on it at this point.
And that's like...
Welcome, folks. I'm Livvid. In today's video, I'm going to let Todd Howard, the director of Bethesda Game Studios, explain why Elder Scrolls 6 is taking so long. Believe it or not, there are some people online who believe that this game is 15 years in the making, that these types of games take decades to make, that when Skyrim dropped on 11/11/11, Bethesda went right to work on the sequel. But I'm going to let Todd Howard refute those baseless accusations. I'll be jumping in here and there to give some of my own opinions too. All right, let's get started.
Yeah, I do think that there is a common misconception that like GTA 6 has been in the works since 2013, and that's not true. They worked on it after they put out Red Dead 2. That's certainly true. But I also think that there's a misconception, which I think is more fair, which is that when the game is announced, they're working on it. I think that's a fair assumption to make. When you announce a game and show a trailer, that you're working on it. And I think it's very, very likely that work would not begin until 5 to 6 years after they announced it. Which is crazy.
Yeah, well, because I remember it was a couple years ago on this show where you sort of talked about, you know, your longer term philosophy for the studio, and that, you know, you were going to do the Elder Scrolls 6 after this other mystery game that was sort of in between. So I guess we now know what that mystery game is?
Yes, it's Starfield,
okay.
Which is incredibly exciting for us. We've been working on it for a long time.
Yeah.
Working on it for a long time in 2018. Maybe he just meant 3 years since like Fallout 4, but...
And,
really?
You know, it's one of those things where even though we're announcing it, there'll be a time, obviously, where we really show it off and dig deep, and that'll be closer to its release.
Yeah, this is important to understand, is also the very, very specific context of the announcement. It was revealed in 2018. In 2018, at this point, Bethesda had not been acquired yet. ZeniMax, rather, their parent company, had not been acquired yet, but they were actively shopping around. There was news that there were some interested parties like Vivendi, for example, but they didn't really materialize. I remember making a video at that time where I said, I think that they're going to sell. I think that's why they've gotten so greedy all of a sudden, and it ended up being true. But I think what happened, very similar to how Bungie greenlit a bunch of projects right before selling to PlayStation, to boost the value of their company, at least on paper. I think that ZeniMax also did that too, where they greenlit all of these live service games to try and boost the bottom line, to also, again, build out the balance sheet and get more for the company when they sold it. It's why we got Redfall greenlit during this period, Fallout 76, all of these live service games that ended up being kind of disasters. They all came out of this era.
Announced them, but he said it really was just a logo resolve, and there's not a lot. You said it was, I think it was a next generation single player experience. Your time, how you're sort of, you've got 3 studios now in BGS. I mean, where are you focusing your time right now?
Dude, I just saw Rage 2 in the bottom. That's a throwback. Do you guys remember Rage?
Tend to look, first of all, we have a great team, and I've worked with a lot of these people. The average time is over a decade, and they really know their stuff, so it doesn't take me kind of digging in the weeds on everything. I tend to spend my time up front when we're doing a game, creatively, what is this going to be, and then as it's coming in, Fallout 76 right now is dominating our studio's bandwidth because that's the game that's coming out, and we have more people on that project than we've ever had on any project.
When it came out, this narrative changed quick. I don't know if people remember it, but when Fallout 76 came out and was a disaster, it very quickly pivoted and it became Bethesda Game Studios Austin's fault because they had bought out this studio that became BGS Austin, and that was their baby, was going to be Fallout 76. And so very quickly it pivoted and was, well, it's an Austin game that Maryland is helping with, but it's not really us, it's them. It's, even though nowadays, now that Fallout 76 is more successful and popular, it's doing better with the show, the narrative's shifted again, and so now Maryland takes more credit for it. But it's very funny how the narrative changed.
But then the mobile game Blades is it's amazing, and that's an awesome team. Most of them are in Montreal, but we also do work in Rockville on that game. And that's fun to do as well. So for me right now, I'm still a kid in a candy store. I get to look at all of these games and work with all of these amazing people.
But is it transitional for you? Because I think for many times your team, you were focused on kind of one project. It was all in 100% on that. And now you've got, feels like 4 or 5 things that are sort of competing for attention.
Well, the other thing is, I think it's from the outside. It's viewed one way. We always overlapped. A Oblivion into Fallout 3, into Skyrim, into Fallout 4, and then Fallout Shelter, and doing VR versions.
I think the difference is those projects overlapped, but all of those projects were single player, narrative adventure games, and they're the games that your fans really wanted. Now the overlap is between Starfield and then Fallout 76 and then a new mobile game, and then probably an Elder Scrolls Online game as well. That's I suspect is in early phases, but that's just me. And I think all of this other stuff, including multiple mobile games, the creations updates for Fallout 4, which has nothing to do with anything except more ways to make money. They're overlapping projects, sure, but now it's overlapping all sorts of stuff that nobody really cares about, and I think that's part of the frustration. I remember both Rages not delivering on promising concepts. Yeah, I think the studio behind Rage 2 also shut down. I think. Didn't they cancel the new ESO project? My understanding is that ESO is still going. The studio that makes ESO, ZeniMax Online Entertainment, Project Blackbird, that they were also working on, that was shut down. Conveniently for Microsoft, it was also a team that was heavily unionized and actively unionizing, and they happened to lay off a lot of people over there. Strange. But that project was shut down. Those layoffs hit, and I would not be surprised if they sort of sunset ESO and then they kickstart basically Elder Scrolls 76, which I think they're going to do probably after Elder Scrolls Online or Elder Scrolls 6, because Todd has also made comments in the last few years where he said stuff like, yeah, we have Elder Scrolls 6 and then Fallout 5 after that. And then somebody asked him a clarifying question, and I did a whole video on this on the main channel you can check out, but somebody asked him a clarifying question and he took a moment and he said, I just want to be clear, when I said Fallout 5 is coming after that, I just meant some point in the future. Like, it's coming after Elder Scrolls, obviously. It's like, why would you need to clarify that? If it's next, you would just say it's next, like he's doing right now, saying Elder Scrolls is after Starfield. Why do you feel the need to clarify that it's coming at some point after Elder Scrolls 6, but you don't want to say that it's next? It would suggest to me that there's something between, Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5, which is why he felt the need to clarify. I just meant it's after. I just meant it's at some point in the future after Elder Scrolls 6, which makes me think that they're working on another project. What do we know they like to do? They like to have an online version of their games in-house that they can make money on and recurrent revenue on between like the 20 years between major releases. And to me, it's either Starfield Online or it's going to be Elder Scrolls Online. That would be my guess, but time will tell, because he's going to launch Starfield 2. Oh my God, please no.
And so this is just, it's a larger scale of that, but it's the same, where we'll do pre-production with a smaller amount of people until a game is really there.
Right.
And then when we enter production, we move the bulk of the studio to that game, but not all of the studio. And then as it's, coming in to get finishing for shipping, that's where our focus is.
So would you say, I mean, Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6, are they in production now?
I would say Elder Scrolls 6 is in pre-production, and Starfield is in production. It's a game we've been making for a while.
When you were on the show a couple years ago, Elder Scrolls 6, you said that...
So in 2018, he says pre-production. This is also fascinating because I just posted that Cyberpunk video where where they said that their timelines from pre-production to shipping is between 4 and 5 years. So when they go into pre-production, it should be 4 to 5 years, and then the game comes out, which would put The Witcher 4 at 2027, because they entered pre-production in May of 2022. And they just entered pre-production on Cyberpunk 2 in May of this year. So I think it's fascinating to hear that they were in pre-production on Elder Scrolls 6 in 2018, 10 years before they probably end up launching. Takes double the time. I wonder if that means Elder Scrolls 6 will be double the game that The Witcher 4 is. I don't know. But I do love the idea that we could get, again, The Witcher 4 versus Elder Scrolls 6. That head-to-head very well could happen.
I think something along the lines, someone reminded me on Twitter last night that the technology wasn't there yet for the game you wanted to build when you said this thing was 2 years ago on the show.
Yes.
Is the technology there now?
It's getting closer.
Okay.
Todd says it himself right here. They've got a bunch of different projects that the smaller studios are working on. He works with the main team working on their big titles. In 2018, they had only started pre-production. Later in the video, you'll hear him explain more about how that pre-production looks. But my summary is that one big team works on the next single-player entry game at a time. There is only a small team that works on whatever game comes next until the current project is done. During this interview, they are working on Starfield. Starfield came out in 2023. By Todd's own words, that would mean the big team would have moved over to Elder Scrolls 6 around that time. Now, if you want to give Todd a couple years of a pass due to COVID, fine. But by 2018, it had been 7 years since the release of Skyrim, and they had only started pre-production. One of the highest selling and most influential games in history is Skyrim. Its sequel didn't even get started on pre-production until 2018.
What are the...
Well, I also think, this was 2019. I also think it's important to understand that, like, I've heard both takes at this point, because after the Fallout show came out, everybody was like, how do they not have Fallout 5 ready to go, or a remake or something? And people were saying, I think they should have walked away from Elder Scrolls 6, and they should have worked on Fallout immediately after Starfield to get ready for the show. I can understand why that would be a pitch or a strategy, but Elder Scrolls 6 is also a massive franchise, and Skyrim is also gigantic. So their problem is that they just don't have the capacity to work on these massive IP quick enough to satisfy even their own fans. And that's a problem much bigger than anything else. They do have a lot more staff than they did. Skyrim was built by like 120 people, roughly, according to the interviews at the time. It was around 120 people. And Elder Scrolls 6 will be built by probably 400 to 700 people, not including all of the contractors and everything, but a much bigger team. So yeah, I mean, to say that because they weren't working on it faster, that implies mismanagement. I don't necessarily agree with that, just because like I personally, cancel me, I don't care. I think they shouldn't have made Starfield. Cancel me, I don't care. I think it was a waste of time. I know it's shocking coming from me, but I think that they probably should have passed on that and gotten right to work on like a Fallout game. They could have had Fallout 5 in 2023. They could have gone straight to Elder Scrolls after Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, had that out in 2023, and then be working on Fallout 5 right now. Like, I think that would have worked out just fine. Cancel me, I don't care. Go for it. It's just my opinion. But I do think realistically that they could not have known how mediocre Starfield would have ended up and how the community would not have connected with it. They were hoping that Starfield would literally be received like Skyrim in space. That's what they were trying to achieve, and it didn't work. Hindsight's 2020. I get that. They were trying to do something different and bold and new, and it just didn't really land for many, many reasons. I made an 8-hour video talking about it and explaining all of my thoughts. It's called the Starfield Saga. Recommend you check it out. But to say that because they hadn't worked on it sooner, therefore implies mismanagement, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think they just made a bet and they lost, and it didn't really work out.
Sort of pros and cons of letting that series sit dormant for that long.
Well, first of all, Elder Scrolls Online is hugely, hugely popular.
This is something he says so often. Listen to him. When people are like, it's been so long since the last single player game, he always brings up the live service offering. It's been so long since Fallout 4. Well, Fallout 76 is bigger than ever, and it's been super popular, and everybody's loving it. At some point, when somebody tells you something 15,000 times, believe them, listen to them. He's said many, many times that he effectively views the live service offering as a panacea to the ill that is long wait periods between games. He sees it as a solution. It's an offering for you to get a fix of Fallout while you're waiting for Fallout 5. Just play 76. You want some Elder Scrolls? You need a little bite of some Elder Scrolls? Go play ESO. That's how they view it. I disagree with it because I don't really like those online games. They're not for me. They're not built for me, and they're not built for players like me. I want the single player stuff. I want the narrative stuff. I want the adventure, and I don't want the live service crap. But they don't view it that way, which explains the strategy. Because for him, he does not view it as 20 years between Fallout 4 and Fallout 5. Like, he doesn't view that the same way that you and I do, where it's like, God, I'm waiting 20 years between Fallout games. Because for him, he's like, no, in 2018, you got a Fallout game, and that's had 10 years of content. So really, if Fallout 5 launches in 2033 and Fallout 76 is operating until 2030, you only had to wait for 3 years. So be grateful.
And the team doing that at ZeniMax Online is fabulous. So it's not that we're not feeding high-quality Elder Scrolls to people.
No, but
it is like that, though. Like, this is why I would love to do one of these interviews, because like they would say something like that. So like,
is fabulous. So it's not that we're not feeding high-quality Elder Scrolls to people.
No.
Well, I mean, yeah, it is like that though, because you're feeding fans something they actively dislike. They hate it. It's not like we're not feeding our Fallout fans high-quality Fallout stuff in the form of Fallout 76. Yeah, but like they don't want it or like it. So it's kind of like you're not doing that. So it's kind of like the opposite of what you just said. Help me understand. What do you mean? Yeah, just like a little pushback. Just a little. This guy is like the senior editor at IGN. He's been around for ages, okay? He's the guy that did, I think he's the one that did the infamous Prey review. No, not Prey. Alien Isolation review, where they gave it a really bad score and everybody else thought the game was amazing. McCaffrey, yeah, that's it. He's been around for ages, and I'm not bringing that up to be like, don't pay attention to him. He's like a legend in this space, okay? He's been around forever. He's an OG. He's been doing this for like decades. But because he's been doing it for decades, I think like a lot of these people he's friends with, and he's known for a long time because he's in the industry, right? And that can sometimes lead to a little bit of I don't know, maybe a bias where you like, these guys don't get called out for things that maybe you should push back on. I'm not saying you got to be a dick to Todd. Like, I'm not saying that at all. I just think it's like when your buddy says something kind of stupid and you're like, okay. But if he was not your buddy and he was just some dude talking at a bar, you'd be like, shut up. You know, what are you talking about? You know, it's the difference between being cordial and like friendly and buddy, and then being like a journalist interviewing somebody who said something that was just not accurate, you know, not true. Because in this case, I think what Todd just said is not accurate. You're not giving fans what they want, which is why people are dissatisfied. And whenever I watch any of these interviews, I'm like, pushback, just a little pushback. Let's do a little pushback. Can you do an interview with Todd, like with Maddie? I would always be open to it if Todd ever wanted to chat. We've made a couple of attempts to reach out to the company. It's not like I have his cell phone number or anything, but we made a couple of attempts to reach out to the company. I'd be shocked if he wanted to, but I would always be down. And to be clear, I'm not saying I'd be shocked because like he can't handle it. He can handle it. He's a grown man. It's because I'm a YouTuber who sits here burning a candle with his picture photoshopped onto a saint, and I have a cardboard cutout of him in the background, and we commonly make jokes about praying to him. It's a little weird, okay? Totally fair if he doesn't want to chat. Totally fair, okay? I'd be weirded out too.
But
yeah, I know.
You know yourself that
I know.
a lot of your fans don't want to play with other people in the Elder Scrolls
Okay,
world.
little pushback. A lot of your fans don't want to play with other people.
Todd was trying to deflect there by mentioning the Elder Scrolls Online, but the interviewer does a fantastic job recognizing what Todd was trying to do and calls him out on it. Almost the exact second that Todd gets...
What about Corey? Oh, dude, I would love to chat with Corey, but I also understand Corey is working on a very large video game. And I would guess when the time is right and Corey is promoting his game and is like doing the press circuit, I would reach out and we would try to set something up. And I would be interested if he was willing to chat at that point. But obviously right now when he's building the game, there's not a lot. I mean, what would we talk about? It's just like, can you tell me anything? Yeah, it wouldn't go much anywhere. But we'll figure it out.
Pushback, he starts going, yeah, I know, because he knew what the interviewer was trying to say.
No, but
I know.
you know yourself that
I know.
a lot of your fans...
This series was built on single player
Dude, this immediately, like, the hemming and hawing.
but
I know.
back, he starts going, yeah, I know, because he knew what the interviewer was trying to say.
No, but
I know.
you know yourself that
I know.
a lot of your fans...
This series...
Yeah, I know. Because he does know. He's spinning it because Todd's a salesman. He's a cheeky little salesman. He knows what he's doing, you know? Anybody who's like, oh, I think he's just, you know, that he misunderstood the question. No, he knows what you're saying. He knows what you're saying. He's spinning it because he's a good salesman. He's very good at it. But that's why if you give a little pushback, you can actually get an answer.
This was built on single player experiences. He asked you about The Elder Scrolls 6, not ESO DLC.
The gap in between is obviously going to be long. On one hand, I think it's good to miss things. You know what I mean? I think.
Yeah, this is a legitimate answer. And this one, I think, is a valid answer to the question. Why do we have to wait 20 years between big releases? And then he comes and says, I think it's okay to miss things. I kind of want people to miss things. That is a very, very valid question or valid answer. And I think it's part of the magic of like Elder Scrolls and Fallout and everything else that they do is that because there's such a gap, when it comes, it is a moment, you know? And that's been something that like Xbox, for example, has struggled to build are moments because like Doom comes out and then Doom is out. And it just kind of like comes along, there's a little bloop and then it moves on. And like nobody's talking about it anymore. But then with Elder Scrolls and with Fallout, when there's something, it's a big deal. And I think it's because there's such big gaps and he allows people to miss it. It's the opposite of the Assassin's Creed problem, you know? Assassin's Creed, you get so many freaking games and spin-offs and DLC crossover, whatever things, that it's hard to miss it at all. Because like, if anything, you're probably just overwhelmed with how much stuff there is. And then on the flip side, you get something like this, or you get something like, what what's another? I mean, Witcher, where obviously by the time The Witcher 4 comes out, it will have been over a decade. Already it's been over a decade since The Witcher 3, but like an actual decade since we got anything like that. Same with Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk, probably the sequel comes out, I'm guessing 2029 to 2030, which will put it about a decade after the fact. And so those will feel like real moments for sure.
That makes people come to it with really, really fresh eyes. And I think when they eventually see the game and what we have in mind, they'll understand the gap more in terms of technology and what we want it to do.
I guess it'll be the first time that...
Yeah, I think, you know, if you're taking time, you just, if you're going to take a big gap, you got to wow people when you come. That sounded sexual. If we're going to take a long time to build a video game, ayo. If we're going to take a long time to build a video game, when you eventually arrive with the video game to present to your fans, you need to wow people. And I think that was the big problem with like Starfield, is that it was such a big build up. It came out and everybody was like, oh, okay. it didn't stick the landing, which is the bigger problem. I think Todd has you out on blacklist at this point. I would have thought that too, but dude, they still sent me like review code. They still sent me, I got the freaking Starfield jacket, like the actual bomber jacket thing. That's comically too big for me. And so I think like maybe now in the aftermath, maybe because they're like, oh god, he's still talking about it. But I don't know. We would have fun. I mean, I wouldn't be a jerk. I wouldn't be a dick. We just like to meme on it because we're fans. We're fans, fam. We're fans.
Elder Scrolls has missed a whole console generation.
In a certain way, yeah, we put out the special editions, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, it will.
Oh, yes.
See, that was good. Ryan gave a little pushback, and then like you could see he was about to spin it. Well, no, we got the anniversary, but then he's like, nah, okay, yeah, no, we're gonna miss it.
In a certain way, yeah, we put out the
See, he's about to spin it, and then you see a moment where he's like, no, okay, never mind.
special editions, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, just be real, dude. Just be real. I think people would connect so much better and would not meme or hold Todd's feet to the fire so bad if the marketing spin was just toned down a little bit. Like, I think if they tone down the marketing spin, it would help a lot, in my opinion. Because I think it's just part of the reason that the meme of like, tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. I think the reason why that has become such a thing is because every time you hear Todd talk, it's like this. It's like this marketing mumbo jumbo spinning it. So you never really know what the real answer is because it's always being spun. And I think if it was just like chill and real, that would not be a problem. It's just like the complete polar opposite of this, you know, the guys that just don't do this. It's the Warhorse guys, the guys behind KCD2. They are total bros. I mean, like, seriously, they will just openly joke and goof around with you and be like, oh no, it's the game's broken, it must be because we suck at our jobs. You know, like they'll like be self-deprecating and silly and like, because they're just having fun. They're just like having a good time building video games. You know, they are the polar opposite, maybe sometimes to a problematic degree, because they might even get themselves in trouble by being too clearly worded. But that's because they're European. Maybe I've heard it's a Czech thing. I've heard it's a Czech Republic thing, is that they are very just like matter of fact. Somebody phrased it when I was in Prague. They phrased it as like, welcome to Prague. I've never been to America, but my friends tell me that Prague and the Czech Republic is like Florida in your country. So that the people are very much like in Florida. I was like, okay. Like I was like, I'm not sure how that connects, but in the sense that like just they're all kind of crazy. They don't give a crap. They are very, very secure in themselves. That's the vibe I got. Like the Czech Republic, the people within like the Czech people, they have no insecurity. They are totally chill. Like you go to Germany and it feels like everybody's walking on eggshells. Everybody's like scared of like their own cultural legacy, let's just say, which fair. I would probably be too. But in like Prague, everybody's just like, sup. Like they are so chill. It's very funny. Anyway, continue. I would also be chill, dude, if I lived off of smoked cheese and pretzels and beer all day. Oh, what a vibe.
Yeah.
Yes, it will.
Ah, yes, the multitude of special editions that were so hard to develop, Todd. You're right. It's basically entirely new games every time you release Skyrim Special Edition.
Are you thinking about 6 in a whole new way, or is it just the fact that you are busy with Starfield and technology kind of pair with that at all, with allowing you to change your thinking?
It's a little of both, right? We had done so many things. We're going Elder Scrolls Fallout, Elder Scrolls Fallout.
Yeah.
And you have this Starfield game in your head. You sort of say, well, when? It can be never. You can say never. We're creatives, and it's like, okay, we have to make this game, and this is the time. And so
this is something that I do want to point out. If, honest question in chat, cultural legacy, please elaborate. 1939. Dude, do I need to elaborate beyond that? September 1939. Oops. Big oops happened there. Starfield Saga. If you did not, please, no more elaboration. If you did not see this was a video I posted. Dude, it's been a year. This is in the old studio, the room right on the other side of the wall. But in this video, I show some of the old school forum posts that Todd made back in like the 90s. I actually found forum posts that he had made. Let me see. Oh yeah, these are some of the old ones. But these are old forum posts that have been backed up in Google Groups of all things. You can still find some of them. But you can see that there are references to Todd Howard. This is the actual Todd Howard, posted April 3rd, 1997. And you can still find these today. You can still find these statements. As you can see here, where they're talking about easy, I don't agree with System Shock Shu and Mech 2. They've received plenty of kudos and awards. Ultima 7, many think 4 and 6 are better, but I disagree. Times of Lore, Chris Roberts' first game for Origin, and the original parseless interface that Sierra stole. Future Shock, Karateka, Apple II, The Horde. Like, you can actually still find these, okay? Many of them have been lost to time, but a lot of them are backed up, even still. And in those old forum posts going back to the 90s, you can find references where Todd is explaining how he would love to do a big expansive space RPG. And it's very, very cool. It's very, very cool because it does mean, like, when he says we've wanted to do this game for a long time, he is not joking. He wanted to do that game back in the 90s. And then they decided that was the time to try it. And I would love to know if he honestly, with like no marketing BS or spin, if he honestly thinks that it like lived up to his vision of it. I would love to know. If the answer is yes, I find that almost more interesting than if he says no, there's stuff I would like to do differently. But I would love to know.
Elder Scrolls 6 is going to have to wait a little bit. And plus, again, Elder Scrolls Online is doing so well. It's so vibrant that this is the time. If we could compress that time and have it all happen faster, I could wave a magic wand. Of course we would. But we're not going to sacrifice that.
I mean, you could theoretically farm it out to one of the other BGS studios and you just oversee it from here if you wanted it, out that badly, but it will be
But again,
done here by
the
you.
kind of things that we're talking about are going to take a lot of people.
Yeah.
Every BGS studio will probably be involved
Yeah.
in that game. And even Starfield right now, not really in Austin, but in Dallas and in Montreal, there's staff on Starfield as well.
And this is where it's Todd's specific leadership style that comes into question. For a while, it had been Elder Scrolls Fallout, Elder Scrolls Fallout. Skyrim is one of the highest selling games of all time. Then Fallout is extremely popular in its own right. Then comes Starfield. Yeah, I understand the desire as developers to make content for you. I have that same logic with my own channel. I know when I start playing an obscure game for 20 years ago, I'm probably not going to get a lot of views on it, but I do it for me. It's what makes this fun. The big team that works on the main games probably wanted a break from the other titles, but it's still an experimental passion project. That should have been given to a smaller team to work on for 15 years.
I'm not going to fly 3,000 miles and not ask about Elder Scrolls 6 at least a little
Sure,
bit.
go ahead.
Especially when you're sitting in front of a freaking Elder Scroll. Fair question, dude. There's something on that table. What was I going to ask you? I totally forgot. I actually would say I don't personally, and the literal wall from the opening. I do not have a problem with teams doing something wacky, but I do think it's fair for the fans to feel frustrated when they feel like basically 5 years was spent on something they have no interest in. Like, for example, Pentiment is a good example of when this is done really well, I think. Pentiment is a weird game. It's just freaking weird. It's hard to describe to people who have not played it and don't know what it's like, but it is this, like, it's a narrative game and it's done in this medieval art style. It's very experimental. It's strange. And it's one of those games that would never, ever do well in a big commercial setting because it's just weird. It's weird, but it's very good. But this is not something like I would say this is a good project for a smaller team to work on. And then they put it together and they pop it off and it did very, very well. But I would not blame people to be upset if they were to like have the entire team work on this for a number of years. And then it's just like, oh, this is all it is. Okay. It's just not for me. So I think this is a good example of like the passion project that's executed well, especially because people and developers can certainly get creatively, maybe bored is the wrong word. Fatigued is the word I've heard a lot of creatives use when they work on one IP or genre for a decade or 2 decades and they just need to change something. You know, they've been working on The Witcher for 10 years. They put out The Witcher 3. They're like, let's do Cyberpunk. You know, we announced that a few years back. Let's actually do it now. Or in the case, like I personally am really, I suspect that there might be a total shift from like Rockstar after GTA 5 or GTA 6. I think they might go into a new IP or just something totally different. I think we probably see Warhorse do something totally different. You're seeing it from Naughty Dog right now, where they finished freaking The Last of Us Part 2. They worked on some live service stuff for a bit that got canceled, and now they're doing a totally new IP, sci-fi game, totally different. Owlcat, yeah, they do a bunch of Warhammer stuff. Now they're going to do The Expanse and actually go sci-fi, high production value, third person. Crazy. But I think that is something that's totally valid. So I will defend their choice to try something different in the form of Starfield, because again, nobody sets out to make a mid game or to make a game that doesn't satisfy their fans. Like they were hoping that they would put out Starfield and it would be the next Skyrim, that people would play it and go, oh my God, give us Starfield 2. That's what they were hoping. It just didn't really happen. Didn't really click that way. And, you know, c'est la vie. What are you going to do? It is what it is. No sense crying over spilled milk. Blah, de blue, de blah, blah.
Fair question. I get asked a lot.
It's going to be roughly, probably 15 years between Elder Scrolls games. Because
what's funny is he said in 2019 in the last interview, he's like, it's going to be a decade between games. Now it's been 2 more years. It's now been a decade since Skyrim because it's 2021. And now he's like, so it's going to be 15 years, which is closer. But I still think it's going to be more like 17 to 18.
You're busy with another little thing called Starfield, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. Is that a good thing, do you think, or is that not ideal?
Well, look, I think that's a really great question and a way of putting it. You know, for me, when I look at franchises, is it vibrant? Okay, Skyrim still is. Elder Scrolls Online is huge. It's one of the biggest online games in the world, and that's part of our company, even though our studio isn't developing it. We work with them. I think they've done an absolutely phenomenal job. So when I look at the Elder Scrolls as a franchise, you know, is it healthy? Is it doing well? Yes. Would you plan to have the kind of gap we're having between Skyrim and the follow-up? I can't say that's a good thing, right? I wish I could wave a wand and the game that we want to make and we have in our head, we're starting things on, just came out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's other things we want to do, right?
A few years later,
and I think that's fair. I think it's fair. Development is not magic, but I think that, again, the frustration, I understand why he frames Elder Scrolls Online as being healthy and being great and why, like, that means the franchise is healthy. But again, I think that there's just this huge disconnect between the core fan base and the online players and stuff, where like the core fan base does not view Elder Scrolls Online really as Elder Scrolls. They view it as something else, as like a spin-off. They just do. I understand it's the same IP. I understand that it's canonical or whatever. I get all of that. But pretty clearly, with how often people say it'll be 20 years between Elder Scrolls games, most people don't consider it to be part of the IP, part of the franchise. They think it's something different, something else, something on the outside. And it's just frustrating to constantly hear it reframed as like, well, ESO's there, so stop complaining. You know?
Todd is still saying the same things. Skyrim is still selling. Elder Scrolls Online is amazing. The strange part is how he takes the success of the Elder Scrolls brand and says that's why they aren't going to develop new ones. Skyrim and ESO are...
Well, to be clear, he's not saying they're not developing new ones. They are developing new ones. It's just taking a while. So to be clear, like it's not fair to say he's not. And I think that there is certainly mismanagement within Bethesda. There's plenty of it. In fact, one of the other things, I think we'll run out of time to do, but Kiwi Talks did a podcast. We actually interviewed Dennis Mejilones, one of the former character artists at Bethesda, who talked about his time at the studio. And one of the big things he talks about was the work culture and how inefficiently it was managed.
Another pain in the ass, honestly, with the studio going in the direction that it did. Just too many producers, too many managers, too many hands in the pot, and just like, that hurts the game. I know the intention is to make things more efficient, but it's, in my opinion, actually makes it worse.
Fascinating interview. I think maybe on Friday or something we'll go through some of this stuff because it is very interesting. Because he also left the studio, as did a lot of people after Starfield. But yeah, I think there is mismanagement. But the big picture stuff, I don't want to blame them for trying something different with Starfield. I think studios should try different things. You shouldn't just make the same thing 15 times. I know people are saying, well, part of the problem is that it didn't feel different from Skyrim. I get what you mean. I totally understand what you're saying. But what I mean is, like, they tried a new IP, they tried a new setting, they tried doing something different, and the execution didn't come together, and so it didn't land the way they wanted it to. But that's a separate thing. I still think that they should try different things. They should try that. My broader frustration with all of this is, again, just the assertion that, well, the live service stuff should satisfy you. Clearly it doesn't. And that at least suggests a disconnect between Todd and the core fan base that likes the single player stuff.
Are still so popular, so why would we make any more right now? Again, this isn't the strenuous labors of game development. He is actively directing the big team to work on other projects. The success of Skyrim was to the detriment of Elder Scrolls 6.
Starfield, thinking about Elder Scrolls 6.
Well, I think also the other piece, it's not also just Starfield. Like Fallout 76, I think, was the big distraction, because that built out probably like 3-4 years of time between building it and then trying to fix it. So that definitely extended timelines a lot.
So what's it take to take a game from the idea to find the final product?
We were always overlapping. While we're making one game, probably by the midpoint of one game, we've had enough conversations to understand what the next one's going to be. What are the big ticket, like, where's it set? What's the tone? Is there a big ticket feature or two that make it really unique? And then when we're finishing one game, we start, before that, we start concepting. So
what do you think the big ticket item is going to be in Elder Scrolls 6? Because I agree, every time that there's a Bethesda game, there is some big ticket item. With like Fallout 4, it's the cinematic approach, the overhauled gunplay. They also had a new dialogue system as well, which came with the voice protagonist. So they had all of these things that were, and the base building is probably the other big thing. But what is going to be the big mechanic in Elder Scrolls 6? I suspect they're going to reuse the procedural generated environment tech from Starfield, and I think they're going to repurpose it into endless like dungeons. So think of like the Chalice dungeons in Bloodborne, but I think that they're going to do it where like you go into a cavern and it's just endless. Because I think they're going to find some way to reuse the procedural tech. I'm not saying I like that, but I think that that's one thing they're going to do. I think they'll also have castle building, as I've described before. I think they'll have that. So the base building system will be reworked into a castle system with companions doing things around the castle. You could have them crafting arrows for you. You could have them brewing potions or crafting food and stuff for you. So your companions are involved within your castle. I think that'll be it. And then I also think they probably will have some ship customization building system or something where you'll have an actual ship sailing along the coast, and that will be like their fast travel system. I wouldn't be surprised if they swing the complete opposite way and get rid of fast travel except on your ship, because people complained about it. That's what I think. So, but we'll see. You guys have some good guesses too. Realistic Khajiit feat. Boom. That would work. Deirdre portals. Basically, yeah. I mean, I think it would just be like, do you really think they spent all that time on the procedural tech for Starfield and they're not going to touch it again for like 10, 15 years before they do the sequel? No. I think they're going to reuse it, and they're going to use it for like endless dungeons and stuff.
We'll do concept art. So take Elder Scrolls 6. We forgot where it's set. What's the tone? What are the big features? We discussed the beginning of the game, which we've had for a very long time.
Where's it set again?
Yep. In Tamriel. Again, we're working on the world. You're then doing concepting and design for the world. And then once we're wrapping up one game, we can really start prototyping. And that's still what we call a VS, vertical slice. So you still don't have the full team on it. And it's a larger chunk of the game that you can play. And then once you feel good about that, you're going to bring on the rest of the team. And we're fortunate that the other games we've done are popular enough that we can be doing DLC and content and those kind of things while we're getting the one going. And then we're at full production, where we're sort of at maximum size. We just call that production. That's like the full production period. And that, depending on the game, can run a year, 2 years, maybe more. And then you kind of have a final 6 months to a year on a game, which is, okay, we've built everything now. And usually it needs a lot of glue, where we have a lot of very different elements that maybe aren't clicking together the way you want outside of the regular polish for levels and features. And we're shaving and gluing and sticking things together so that it's not this schizophrenic game experience, that things flow from one into another.
By the time of this interview in 2022, it's still 10 months before Starfield is released in September of 2023, which means they've only done conceptual work with a small team on Elder Scrolls 6 for the last 4 years. He calls this the vertical slice period. Eventually, you bring on the main team after that for finalizing, which they call actual production. That's another 6 months to a year. Then another gluing phase, which he doesn't really give a timeline on. If I could speculate a little bit, I would say from the release of Starfield in September of 2023, that we would still be in the actual production phase still, not the glue phase. Again, I'm not sure what the glue phase length would be like, but at this point I would say it would be coming out anytime between 2026 and 2028. Just using his own metrics.
Gamers love great games, so getting to work with ZeniMax to bring their amazing collection of games to Game Pass is just an incredible opportunity for us.
Are you making cuts to this company as you acquire it, or are you going to leave it alone?
Our plan is to leave it alone. I mean, ZeniMax has an amazing track record of building great games. Our goal is to make ZeniMax the best ZeniMax they can be, working individually with their studios on the great platform technology that we have, getting their creators' feedback into the things that we need to go build. That's just a critical flywheel for us innovating, is the feedback of the world's best creators on our platforms.
All right.
We're really hoping this works out, because we just spent a lot.
Luke Warfield 2002 donated $9.99 through Super Chat. Luke, I know you don't loop to doom and gloom, but does it get to a point you just lose respect for Todd? People defend it and say he may be ignorant, but he doesn't care about the fans and only paychecks.
I think, the old saying is, don't attribute to malice or intention what can be adequately explained by incompetence. And I think that a lot of the mismanagement around Starfield, or more specifically Fallout 76, some of the stuff they did with Fallout 76 was borderline evil. They knew that wasn't ready. They knew how broken it was. They knew how some of those merch items were not what they had promised to people, and they repeatedly deceived their own customers and fans to sell them those things to get cash. And at some point, if you are the head of the company, that lands on you. At some point that lands on your shoulders, and you have to answer for it. So I think for Todd, Fallout 76 is still something that unfortunately taints his legacy. As for right now, with Starfield, what I more have a problem with is that there is just such regular, what I would view as disrespect of their previous games and IP and even the fan base, with like the paid mods being built out and with the creations being forced into everything, even to its own detriment, breaking like mods, breaking other things. They released the Fallout 4 next gen update, like I think it was a day or two before the Fallout London expansion, like DLC or mod was set to release. Like they had previously tweeted stuff about it, I believe. Like they knew about it, and they chose to do that intentionally, seemingly to break the game and mod support so that you couldn't download that mod. Like it was just weird. It's just weird. So I think no matter what, you have to have some respect for Todd for building some amazing franchises and games, and he does have a fantastic track record, I would argue, pre-2018. The problem is just that for a decade, it's just been miss. And every miss you can directly connect to and correlate to a pursuit of a quick paycheck with like paid mods, or with Fallout 76 and the live service thing. When they sell to Microsoft, he probably got some big bonus and stuff like that. And at some point that I think has to affect your opinion of him. But yeah, they knew about the London mod, but didn't really offer much coverage and even acknowledgement that the community loves your game. I think Bethesda seems to hate the fact that some other people can do better with their own IP. There is a weird snark with it, I think, for sure. I think, yeah, it's just, I think that there is, realistically what's happened is that over the last handful of years, I think BGS has grown a ton, and they've pumped out all of these live service games, the mobile games. I think it's made Todd a lot of money. And I think that he is looking to the messaging that tells him what he wants to hear, which is that everything's going great and that they have more players than ever playing Elder Scrolls, if you count ESO and Blades, and then the new Fallout Shelter Elder Scrolls game. And Fallout's doing great because they have the Amazon show and all this. And so I think he's looking at the metrics, which are convenient. But then when you talk to like the core fan base that built him up into what he is, they're kind of cast to the side. So I think that that's part of the frustration.
So Microsoft bought ZeniMax back in 2020. Microsoft has a lot of cash. Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox at the time, says he's not going to mingle too much with Bethesda. Now, I'm not calling for anybody to lose their job. In fact, I would call for the opposite. I think Todd Howard wants control. He's been with the company most of his life at this point, and he rose through the ranks. He's been around for a long time, with the later entries of Fallout and the Elder Scrolls for more than 2 decades. But Microsoft is in control now. If I were Microsoft, I would keep Todd around, but increase from one big team working on every major title in sequential order into one big team for each major IP, with their smaller studios or outside studios to work on other projects within the IP, like they did with Virtuous on the Oblivion Remastered. I think the Oblivion Remaster is a great example that you could put the workload onto another studio who is hungry to work with these franchises.
Yeah, I mean, that's a weird example just because like it's a very capable team that's done a lot of work. Virtuos has done, I mean, they've worked on pretty much everything you've probably ever played. Like they're huge. They have like 4,000 employees or something. But they were working on a remaster thing, so like all the work was basically done, and then they were just kind of putting in a new wrapper. But I get what you mean. They could give it and trust it to other people. But I think the best example of a studio that's handled this predicament of having big IP people want more of is CDPR. I mean, again, they opened up new studios in Boston, and then I think in Toronto maybe, or Montreal, but they opened up new studios in North America that are going to just do Cyberpunk, and they'll do some work on Witcher. I think they're also doing work on the Witcher multiplayer game, but they're mainly working on Cyberpunk. And then they have the team back in Poland who's working on the Witcher, and so they can have these 2 gigantic studios that are specializing in building stuff out, and they're on other sides of the planet. So technically at any given moment, somebody's working on The Witcher, somebody's working on Cyberpunk, because they're on opposite sides of the planet. And so no matter what, somebody's always working on it, always pumping through it. And I think that's part of what's going to help them pump out these games much, much faster. Because as I said in the video that went up this morning, no joke, we are expected to get The Witcher 4, Cyberpunk's sequel, a Witcher 1 remake, a Witcher spin-off multiplayer game, The Witcher 5, potentially also a new IP from them, and maybe The Witcher 6, all before Fallout 5 launches. And that's like an optimistic timeline. That's assuming they get Fallout 5 out in like 2033, which would be like a 5-year dev cycle, which they might not hit. So like, that's what we're talking about in terms of efficiency. In the time that Bethesda will put out 2 games, they will put out like 6 or 7 big like AAA stuff. So yeah, Cyberpunk will use UE5. It will. Yeah. The job postings they have are for UE5 specifically. Yeah, they'll put out 6, 7. How dare you? Banned. No, I'm kidding.
I have no idea when this game is coming out, but I think Todd bungled this for years, and it's entirely on him. Yes, these games are huge. They take a lot of work. And no, I don't want anything to be rushed, but you still need to work on them. If Starfield was what Todd was passionate about, I think he should have just made a smaller team, and him and that team could have worked on that. Then he finds another person to lead the other major projects. However, I don't think that was ever going to happen because that would mean Todd giving up control. So I think he went with the worst option to retain control and invest into a very risky bet that I don't think worked out for anyone. Folks, that's all I've got for this video.
Yeah, I agree he should let go. Good video, by the way, Livvid. Even if I push back occasionally on stupid stuff, because I'm pedantic. Still very good video, Livvid. And I'll give you the sub and the like, of course, as I recommend everybody does. But I think Todd should give up control a little bit because he has always been weird about it. Even to this day, if you bring up Fallout New Vegas, they still are weird about it. In one of the recent interviews I saw from like the Fallout show launching, somebody brought up Fallout New Vegas and Todd went, people forget that we published it. It was one of our games. I was like, he's like trying to jump on Fallout New Vegas now, like as if it was their project. What are we doing? What are we doing, man? But I think there's always been something weird. And I think it's partially that he likes control. And I think it's also partially that they have a weird contempt over the fact that like a lot of people's favorite Fallout game is one they didn't make. It was like a cheap spinoff that they had. And I think they have a problem with that. And I do think if they wanted to grow and expand Bethesda and get a new satellite studio that just is focused on like Fallout, you could have them start working on Fallout 5 right now and then hire and expand. You could do that. And I think Phil Spencer would bankroll it and would agree to do it. And I think you could start the ball rolling on that today if they wanted to. But that, I don't think Todd can run that. And all of this whole video posted 6 months ago, this doesn't even include the fact that Todd was executive producer on the Indiana Jones game. What is he doing with that? Why is he doing that when he's got all this other stuff going on? Like, why is he doing that? Not a great use of your time, dude. The game turned out great. So maybe it was a great use of your time for all I know. But like, why is that your focus? Why are you doing that when you're so far behind on the other stuff? I don't know. But interesting video, interesting topic. And I always like seeing Todd clips from back in the day. And it makes you really realize like all of this goes back to it being announced in 2018. And that was like so early that it just led to, I think, a lot of confusion as to where the game was and what the state was. But at the end of the day, it was revealed at that point so that they could milk more money from the sale, and that's the only reason it was revealed.
Dogmatic Socrates
they had not touched it. Yeah.
Donated $10 through Super Chat. Everyone on YouTube talks about how bad the 5090 is, but I've been playing every AAA game in 8K DLDSR at 130 FPS plus with DLAA
and multi-frame generation X4 with less artifacting than the 4090. 5090 is underrated and misunderstood. The 5090 is a beast. I don't know. I'm sure mainly people are bringing up the cost to frame ratio, and multi-frame generation is of course very controversial. A lot of people hate it, but it is a beast. It is a beast. I mean, you'd hope so, because it's like freaking, I don't know, how much is it? $2,000, $3,000? I guess it depends on which version, but yeah, they're expensive, but they're powerful for sure. And they're probably going to get more expensive now too. Probably. But I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying your 5090. Glad to hear that. Booyah. The thing with the 5090 and the 4090 too, to be fair, is that you really need a good monitor for it. A lot of people try to jump into it too early and use it when they don't have the monitor with the quality to do it. You need like a 4K 240 hertz monitor to enjoy a 5090. Real quick, also Rafael Carvalho 2569, thank you for the super chat. Send Todd/BGS his own cardboard cutout with an invite. Dude, that would get me like, they would call the FBI. They're like, they sent me this like worn down cardboard cutout of me with like an invitation somewhere. Dude, that would be funny. This just in, Luke Stevens canceled him. Yeah, everyone, you heard him. He doesn't care. Cancel him. Cancel me. I don't care. Jesus. He took my thing.